Hello and welcome everyone to tonight's event with 192 Books. I am Evan, the manager here at the store, and I am so thrilled to be welcoming everyone to our celebration of Oscar Wilde's 166th birthday. Wonderful Libra author that we really cherish and love here at 192 Books, of course. And to celebrate Renato Miracco's new book, Oscar Wilde's Italian Dream, 1875 to 1900. This book explores a sort of lesser known time in Wilde's life and his trips to Italy when he was a young man and also after his time in England. And it's full of beautiful new archival photos that have never been seen before and just a wealth of information about Oscar Wilde that is a real gift to the world. So tonight we have Renato here to talk, as well as Edmund White. Ed, if you don't know, is a great friend of the store, a great friend of this neighborhood in Chelsea, and the author of so many great books, most recently A Saint from Texas and The Unpunished Vice, but also A Boy's Own Story and Our Young Man, City Boy, just inestimable classics. And he's been honored by the Penn Salt Bell Award for Achievement in American Fiction, as well as the National Book Foundation for a distinguished contribution to American letters. So we're so happy to have him as well, talking to Renato tonight. If you don't know, Renato is a esteemed critic and curator. He served as a cultural attaché for the Italian Embassy in Washington for 8 years. He's been awarded the Order of Merit from the Italian Republic, and he's curated shows at the Tate London and the MoMA here in New York. So two incredible guests, and tonight they're going to be talking about this book, showing you some photos from this book, and talking about anything and everything about Oscar Wilde. Later in the night, they are going to take questions. So if you have a question, you can send it to the email below, evan@192books, and I will ferry that over to them. If you have a question right now, you can send it in. The earlier you send it, the better chance it's going to get answered. So send early, send often. And yeah, without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Renato and Edmund and these wonderful photos. So I hope everyone enjoys. And yes, here we go.
Thank you so much, Evan. Really, thank you. And let me say thank you to the Paula Cooper Gallery, 192 Books. Then I would like just to say thank you to Edmund White, who accept just, we met a few months ago before the shutdown in New York. I live in Washington, D.C., and so he was thrilled about the book, and I was so moved by him. And I to say thank you also to Philip Kennicott, who just brought the introduction of the book. Hi, Philip. I know you are on the other side of the web. So hello. And okay, first of all, I would like just to give this some flowers to Oscar Wilde, his favorite flowers. And for his birthday, I prepared some champagne for him. So a toast to Oscar Wilde and for the meaning of Oscar Wilde today. So let me have my drop of champagne for him too, and for you, for all of you.
Isn't your birthday coming soon?
Birthday today.
Your birthday.
My birthday was yesterday. We are close with Oscar with a birthday and with this one. Thank you. Which is the meaning? How I came up with the idea of writing a book about Oscar Wilde. Maybe we'll see along the discussion with Ed. I want to point out right now that the book is really divided into two parts. So I wrote more than 30 years ago a little interview about Oscar Wilde because I found in Paris some papers, and I found Tellini novel, maybe a tribute to Oscar Wilde. And I wrote a little bit article, but then I thought was not enough. So all this year, 75 exhibition, curating all over the world, I say, no, I have to write something about Oscar Wilde, much more specific, just to give a tribute to him, not in the usual way. So I see Oscar Wilde now as a dandy or decadent person, but I would like just to discover Oscar Wilde in totally another way. This is why I choose just to write this book and divide it into two parts. The first part is about the seduction of Italy and the south of Italy in Europe at that time. The second part is about the letters of Oscar Wilde since he was 18, 20 years old in his first trip to Italy and till the end. And what does it mean, the end of his life? Being around Italy, he went multiple times in Italy. Had been living in Naples for a long time, and in Sicily and in Liguria and whatever. What does it mean now into the life of Oscar Wilde? This I want to say and underline at the beginning. Wow. This is really funny. This is a funny, I don't know how many people knows about this photo. It's 1878. He was at the age 24, a second trip to Greece, and he wanted to, and a Greek photographer took this picture. Quite unknown, but okay, I saw so many times in another book, but it's really, describes the fascination of Oscar Wilde about the South and about Greece. Ed, say a few words if you want. ask me something, I don't know.
No, I mean, that's Wilde and Lord Alfred Douglas, and typical of everybody in that period, their clothes are very creased. Because it's only modern clothes that don't have all those wrinkles.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay. In this, the previous photo is in 1891. Bosey was 21 years old, and Oscar was 37. And they met a few years before, and had a strong, at the beginning, a strong sexual relationship between them. And then the relationship changed along the years. And okay, we will see later. We will see later what was in their relationship and what doesn't mean their relationship. One of the part of the book is related to the scandal about homosexuality in London before Wilde. And in this one, we see the Lord Clinton was living with two men dressed by, in women dress. So it was really a big scandal at that moment. Clinton committed a suicide as soon as all the newspaper at that time were talking about this. And was really a tragedy at that moment. But Bolton and Park, two young boys, 22 and 23 years old, were released. So it was really simple, and nobody mentioned Lord Clinton, only at the beginning. Okay. Okay, I would like, before talking this, I would like just add, I don't know what you have in mind about asking me, because this is a really painful photograph that I discovered in the archives about Oscar Wilde in prison.
Well, go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, Oscar Wilde got to prison in 1895, and he was released in 1897. And this graphic is an illustration in the newspaper, shows us how all the prisoners were treated at that time. They were not allowed to talk. They were not allowed to speak each other, only with this mask in front of them, stay 1 hour out in the air. Oscar Wilde was condemned to 2 weeks of dark cell because he was talking with a boy, and a boy was not a lover, but was just a dear friend of Oscar Wilde in that moment. And we have the picture of the boy, Bruchwell. In the following picture should be the photo of the boy. Yes, this is. When Wilde went out, he sent some money to him and sent some money to another boy who was there. The only 2 people they used just to talk at that moment. The director of the prison was so kind, was so gentle, was so moved by Wilde, and he used to give him one piece of paper, little piece of paper a day to write. And in that moment was the beginning of the beautiful De Profundis by Wilde.
A friend of Wilde's visited the prison and knew the director, and the director said, no gentleman lives longer than 2 years after this prison, because Wilde had to walk in a treadmill every day, not a treadmill that produced any energy for any good purpose, but just as a punishment.
Yes.
And the director said, maybe working people know how to do this, but not gentlemen.
Yeah. And everybody was thrilled about Oscar Wilde in that moment, the prison. He was friend with so many prisoners. This one is the Grand Hotel in Naples, where he moved with Bosie in September 1897. And I would like just to show this because it's really important, because we see Oscar Wilde in that hotel, fancy hotel, when he was spending a lot of money because so many friends gave him money when he was released by the prison. In the meantime, in the middle time, he moved to a big villa in Naples. And in the last month in Naples, he moved in a little poor neighbor, in a little palace with a little apartment instead of a villa, instead of a grand hotel. And one of his friend stolen all his dress, all his books, and wherever. Was really a tragedy for him. He was alone in a foreign country. It was really horrible. Oh, this is Matilde Serrao. Matilde Serrao was the director of a huge newspaper in Italy, Il Mattino. She was a writer. She was really smart as a woman at that moment. She was the director of a magazine. She was director with her husband with another newspaper. But as soon as she suspected that Wilde was in Naples, she wrote a really nasty article. And then after her article, all the newspaper in Italy were talking about her, about him. And he wrote so many times, I cannot stand, I cannot be here. I want to go away. I want to live here. I want to live in Italy. I want to to make a new life here. But these journalists are really a mess, are really terrible with me. And and he went to Capri for a few days with Bosie, with Lord Douglas. And then we see what's happening in Capri. Yeah, this is the photo. This is a part of 3 photos that we have them in Naples, in a little trattoria, in a little restaurant. This is both of them. This photo shows both of them. Then we have one alone with Oscar Wilde and one alone with Bosie. And yes, and what was really funny, this was the place where he stays, Hotel Pagano, when he stays in Capri, because they went to Quisisana. Quisisana was a famous and is still famous hotel at that moment. The Quisisana, as soon as they entered into the Quisisana, all the English gentlemen stand up and says, "We cannot stay on the same roof of this man," not about Douglas, of this man. So, them or us. So, this is incredible. This is one of the photos that maybe von Glöden gave to Oscar Wilde. We know right now in archives that he gave him 4 or 5 photos. This is the lover of von Glöden, Il Moro, the black man, Buccinio, who is now dressed as a satire. Another photo that we suspect that von Glöden gave to Oscar Wilde, and this one too. This is the same boy of before in another dress with a little expensive golden chain on his neck.
I think people should be told that von Glöden was a German who came to Sicily and who gave himself the title Baron. He wasn't really a Baron.
No.
And he took pictures of all these boys. I happen to hate these photos, not because I don't like the idea of taking advantage of poor boys and dressing them up in this kind of drag, but Renato told me that that he's not as bad as I thought, that he oftentimes set these boys up in business in little shops. Even their grandchildren were still running these shops in little towns in Sicily, so that he wasn't so evil or exploitive.
Yeah, I knew this because when the first time I went to Sicily, I knew a rich family there. And they said, von Glöden bought a little shop here, gave money to a fisherman, and then it was a testimony of the wedding of the oldest boy. I was really moved because at the beginning I had the same feeling of you, and but what was really good with them. This for sure is the cover of the book, and for sure is the photo that von Glöden gave to Oscar Wilde. On the back we have the Vesuvius, and this is a fake a terrace with the Vesuvio on the back, and it was treated with this photo with all this etched. But this is the photo that von Glöden gave to him. This is the photo of Oscar Wilde less than 1 year before he died. He was in Rome, and he was so proud because Robert Ross was a dear friend, a lover at the beginning, but a dear friend of Oscar Wilde, giving him a lot of money, sent to Naples this new dress. And he wanted to show how proud he is and how beautiful he is with the new dress. And he sent this photo to Robert Ross and he said, you see how beautiful I am. I'm back on my shape. But I'm so proud to wear this dress and everybody are commenting how elegant I am. And so Robert Ross says,
Coat.
Yeah, coat.
You don't say dress.
Yeah, okay,
Coat.
Thank you. This is the neighbor where he was living at the end in Naples. Was Santa Lucia, was really a bad neighbor. And okay, so from the stars to here, from the beautiful hotel, English hotel, to here, passing through a beautiful villa. And we have a lot of articles about them. All the press were talking about Oscar Wilde. Every single day he has his favorite Cafe Gambrinus in Naples, where he used just to stop by and have a drink with journalists, with all the people are taking picture with him. Was really famous that time, as well when he went to Palermo or another place, everybody were commenting about him. So many times in a nasty way, so many times in a good way.
So is that it? I wanted to ask you one question. Everybody knows that Oscar Wilde died in Paris, and most people assume that he spent his last years in France, but you've shown us that it was Italy. Why did he choose Italy?
Good questions. Good questions, Ed. Okay. As I said at the beginning, the fascination of Italy at that time was really huge for all the English people. As you know, we have a lot of hotel in Naples and in all of Italy, in Rome, where English people used just to stop by. The routine was to spend Christmas in Rome, Easter in Rome for the English rich people. Thomas Cook, the famous organizer of travel, organized a lot of trips to Italy. This is for the rich people. The unknown reason was the law about prostitution in Italy, the law about homosexuality in Italy changed a lot. We have the Codex Napoleonic in that time on the north of Italy, and we have the church Pope. Pope was Pope Gregorio XVI, who say every single person who are in the act of a homosexual act has to be go to death. Then after the unification of Italy was really interesting because this law continued to be in the north of Italy, but then in the south of Italy was much more, I don't know, relaxed. So in fact, Oscar Wilde, when all the friends says, oh, why are you going to Italy? Because you want to have a prostitute, you want to have a male prostitute. They say, okay, the beauty is around me. The beauty of marble sculpture or statue and beauty in flesh are really around me. So why not?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people were surprised that he got back together with his boyfriend after prison, because his wife Constance had made him promise he would never see Bosie again. And Bosie's mother gave him an allowance only on condition that he not see Wilde. And yet they saw each other much of the way that Verlaine and Rimbaud
Yeah.
got back together after Verlaine got out of prison. It was like a fatality, but I think in a way that Wilde felt, well, he said, I am a romantic and Bosie is my romance. That's from your book.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think he thought he could write with Bosie around.
Absolutely.
But go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
No, I mean, it turned out that he could never write again after prison, but I think he hoped to write.
He wants to discover. It's really important that what you are pointing out, Ed. He wants to write again. He wants to write again in a new way. He wrote a beautiful letters to Frank Harris, says, okay, now I can write with another meaning. Every single word has for me another meaning. And I would like just to write again. It's not easy for me. It's really difficult. And according to me, it's really strange when he was released after the prison, he went to Dieppe in France. And the first letters that he wrote to Robert Ross, he says, I hate Bosie. I cannot stand anymore. I don't want to see him anymore. I hate. 1 week later, he said, 1 week later, he said, I love you. I cannot love anybody else. Please come. And was really incredible because Bosie wrote, Oscar Wilde cannot be without me, and was so difficult, this relationship. They were fighting a lot because according to me they were totally different. And in certain point, Bosie was scared, was really worried that he can lose all the money from the mother. So I say, okay, Oscar, I'll give you 200 pounds, but stay away. I don't want to stay with you anymore. And he was really shocked. And he wrote to all his friends, what happens to me. And the wife, in the meantime, who gave some money monthly to him to survive. Say, if you stay with Bosie.
Wilde, yeah.
Yeah.
Nonsense.
Yeah. And she says, I'll give you no money anymore, any longer. So he was really, really stuck in this poverty. And they say, and there is a letters, really beautiful letter, say, okay, you can dream about art, you can dream about happiness, you can dream about everything. But when you have this poverty around you, it's really difficult to deal with. And
one of the things that struck me is, even though he didn't write anything serious, although he corrected the proofs of his poem, right, the Ballad of Reading Gaol, after in these years, but even though he said he couldn't write, he's so witty in his letters. Like, they're so funny. They're as good as the best lines in his plays. Like, he says that he explains to some, I think, Italian people, that the reason he's wearing English clothes is that it's a form of penance.
Yes.
That's terribly funny, I think, that you dress like an Englishman to show that you're repentant for your sins. And that, and then he says things like, he tried the hearth, and he considered the cloister, but he said, I tried the hearth, but it was a failure.
Yes.
And there was the cloister and the hearth were the possibilities. And he gives all the different names for gay people. That is so funny. And one of the things that is interesting is that in your book, you have a paragraph where he defends homosexuality. I don't think he ever did that before this moment.
Yeah.
But he actually says that it's okay to be homosexual. I think
really,
it's on page 117.
Okay. Yes. I was here.
Yeah.
What was really, yes. He says, okay, patriot put in prison for loving the country loves his country, and the poet in prison for loving boys loves boys. I have altered my life would have been to admit that Iranian love is ignoble. I hold it to be noble, more noble than other form.
I mean, that's a pretty extraordinary remark for the 1890s to say, because there was nobody who was defending homosexuality, and even Proust, who's writing 15 years later, is still condemning homosexuality. Everybody condemned it.
In public.
I mean, there were the rare person who, like Carpenter in England, but very few people actually defended homosexuality. And I think that was a remarkable passage. But one of the things that's so interesting about your book is that you found these really great articles that Italian people wrote about him, and you found these wonderful photos, and you discovered such rich material that that even convinced Wildians never knew about. And that's what's great about this book. And the obvious things the obvious things about his last years you don't explore because other people have done that. But these are rare glimpses into him. For instance, there's a description of Wilde on page 65. Why don't you read that to us? 65.
65. Okay. Yes. Okay. 65. Okay. Yes. When he was in Naples, tall, hairless, a big punch, blood and red cheeks, ironic eye, the arch of eyebrows and lips are dismal, and is dreadful, obscene drinker. It's really incredible, the description. What I really found, it's really incredible, and I want to point out two things right now, was that he had a friend. Giuseppe Rocco was the translator of Salome for him in Italian. Mm-hmm. He was a 23 years old journalist, and he wrote, after Oscar Wilde died, a novel called L'uomo femmina, the female man. So the presence of Oscar Wilde in Italy opened a lot of gay literature at that moment. Was really impressed. And I was really lucky to find this long interview, and in the book there is all totally unknown interview of Oscar Wilde by Arnaldo Delisle, who was the nickname of Giuseppe Rocco, because he doesn't want to show up as to be close friend with Wilde at that moment, and who described Wilde and coming back and forth to visit him, and he wants to understand Wilde. And Wilde say, you have to write about this, you have to write about this. And Giuseppe Rocco, Arnaldo De Lis helped him to be connected with Eleonora Duse. Eleonora
Yes.
Duse was the
Because
actress.
he wanted Duse to act in Salome.
Salome.
And we forget that Wilde wrote Salome in French,
Yeah.
and that it was translated into English by Bosie.
Yes,
But
exactly.
it wasn't
Right.
written in English. And then this man Rocco translated it into Italian. But it was it's still a stunning play. And of course, Richard Strauss turned it into a very frightening opera.
Yes.
But I think that's interesting, that are you Italian? Are you Italian, or your name is so strange?
My father is from Albania,
Albania?
Miracco, and my mom is from Naples. So
Oh yeah, so you're half Italian. Yeah,
I have some Neapolitan blood. Absolutely.
yeah, right, good. And so I hadn't realized that Wilde's wife died so young. She
Yeah.
was only like 41 or something.
41.
And she's buried in Rome, right?
No, in Genova, in Liguria.
Oh, in Geneva.
Yes, in Liguria. Was really good, and he went to see his grave. He was crying. I brought flowers. They were fighting about the kids all the life long, and she decided just to give the new name to the kids, Holland.
Yeah, Holland.
Holland. And it's strange, you know what I mean? This is a confession that I'm giving to the audience. It's really strange because the grandchild of Wilde, Holland, right now, who was supporting this book in England a lot, might say, Renato, you have to consider Oscar Wilde not a homosexual man, a gay man. You have to consider like a bisexual man.
Well, that's what Merlin Holland, he told
Merlin
that to
Holland.
me too.
I had a long discussion by email with him, so Renato, bisexual man. Okay, it's not about bisexual, it's about gay, it's about why you have to underline now about him when he wrote such beautiful things about gay men. I don't know. It's really, you still are in.
Well, of course, he's the grandson, so he wants to prove that Wilde was really his grandfather, and that he was capable of producing boys. I thought it was that the English responses to Wilde, even after he was let out of prison, were almost all hateful.
Yes.
Hateful. Whereas in Italy, it was half and half. I mean, some of them, like by that lady you were talking about, but I think people almost felt obliged to say that about these decadent, horrible homosexuals.
Yeah.
But he had a few defenders, like Rocco and the other one.
Who doesn't? He doesn't want to show up. He doesn't want to be close. So he published all this interview after Oscar Wilde died, 10 years later, 15 years later. All the journalists who were having some affair, means interview with Wilde, they did later.
Yeah.
They would publish in 1906, 1904, 1902. Also, some translation of the Wilde masterpiece were really translated really later. What is really important to me also, it's about after the prison, he was really concerned about prison and prisoners. So and he wrote 2 beautiful articles about how the English prison can be can
Improve.
change. Yes, can change. So he was much more concerned, much more involved into change the reality. So you mentioned before about homosexuality. He was defending homosexuality. He wants to change the prison, wants to give a new reality, and it was really good because he says, okay, I am an artist. I lived a beautiful life, and I have the success and I have the worst in my life. I learned much more from the war. The wars give me an incredible feeling, an incredible.
What's interesting is that homosexual writers and intellectuals of the past, I'm thinking of Jean Genet, Pasolini, and Wilde, they were all interested in, you could say, gay rights, but they were mostly interested in social rights, in the rights of the poor. And they had these very wide sympathies. Today, homosexuals only care about themselves. They've changed, they've become horrible egotists. But in the past, they were very open and had a social consciousness. Well, now that I've offended everybody, maybe we should take some questions from the audience, if there are any.
I would like only to say one word, saying he was, yes, you're totally right. You're totally right about this, but he was so intelligent, so smart, so beautiful, and Frederick Engels,
The communists.
the economist, knew about Oscar Wilde, knew about the new gay rights, and he wrote, "We have to be careful."
And Marx said that too. Marx said that soon maybe the gay people will organize in a way that will become a state within a state.
Yeah, and they say, be careful. That can be just a new nation into the nation. Be careful to that one. It was unbelievable. Marx and Engels was incredible.
I was amazed by reading that in your book. What the first question is, Jessica asked, this is up to you. Can either of you say more about Wilde's taste in his own clothing?
Sorry, what does it mean?
How did he, what were his standards of dress for himself?
Okay, he was really elegant. He likes to have to dress in white. Really elegant. He wants to always to wear rings. He says that he has 2 Egyptian rings. One that makes him lucky, and one is the unlucky. So he knew that he was so superstitious, and he knew that one part of his life was really great, the other part was really bad, and always he was concerned about how he was dressed. This is why one of the best gifts that Robert Ross and some other Leverson gave to him was to have a new dress for him, a new shirt, a new bow tie, a new hat, and that's what was really. He wants to be immaculate at the beginning, formally. He came from a rich family in England, and so. And this was really pointed out really well into the introduction of Philip Kennicott. He was a gentleman. Anyway, so with the boys, with the waiter, with everybody, he was really a gentleman and kind person who is formally well dressed.
You know, an English poet told me once that he was in a working class pub in the East End of London, and he was talking, uh, it was John Heath Stubbs, and he was talking to the bartender about Wilde. And this old man with a tiny cigarette in his and no teeth said, "Oh, did you know Wilde?" And he said, "No, of course not, dear boy. I'm much too young." But he said, "Well, I knew him. When I was a boy, worked for a decorator, and he told me to clear out this whole room so they could do new decor. And one of the things, but I was told by my boss to be very careful with this large Ming vase, and because it was so valuable. And so the boy was really nervous and sweating as he moved the vase. And Wilde came in and said, "Don't worry about that, dear boy. Your own beauty far surpasses it." And you could hear that here in this little pub in the East End in London in the 1960s. You could hear this great voice ringing down through the
Yeah.
year.
His first house in Tite Street in London was beautiful with orange, pink, flowers, dahlia, whatever, and Gabriele Rossetti paintings, drawings, and all in this fashion way. He says, "I want to seduce people. I want to seduce people by words, by also by my ambience, my house. So they have to have this tea with all the young and person wants to come and to attend."
Yeah, that. I guess we don't have another question, but
Yeah.
uh, I was amused to discover. Oh, here's another question. Laurel asks, "What have you both been reading lately, and what other authors would you recommend to an Oscar Wilde lover who's read it all?" Well, I would recommend Denton Welsh
Yeah.
and Ronald Furbank. I mean, they were both, in a way, descendants of Oscar Wilde. Uh, Ronald Furbank wrote many very campy, funny books that are really delicious. Maybe the best one is called Concerning the Eccentricities of Cardinal Pirelli. And, uh, and Denton Welsh, who was much younger and who died very young at 30 something, uh, he wrote A Voice Through the Clouds and a book called Maiden Voyage. And they're both unbelievably beautiful, but they have a kind of campiness, a kind of inconsequence, a kind of, they're capricious in the way that Wilde could be, even in his letters.
I know, and I suggest Edmund White. Read Edmund White, please. In his last, the king of Texas, the saint of Texas, from Texas, but the king of Texas.
Oh, right.
Read Edmund White. Really, really,
Thank you.
I like a lot. And Philip Kennicott wrote a beautiful book right now, and I really suggest him. And I'm really curious about pick up here and there. I really, okay, I read a lot. I read a lot on Kindle. I read a lot when I travel. I read a lot on Kindle. Otherwise, I prefer just to have the paper in my hands.
Uh, well, I'm a great fan of Penelope Fitzgerald,
Yeah.
and I'm reading her book, The Beginning of Spring, right now, which is about Moscow 1900. And it's amazingly well researched, so well that you feel that she knows everything about Moscow in that period. But it's a very slender book, not long-winded, not complicated. But there are other writers I love. Like I just finished reading Kim by Rudyard Kipling,
Ah,
which
yeah.
people say he's a racist, which is just foolish because it is the best book ever written about India, and most Indians will say that. It's so detailed, it's so rich, it's so knowledgeable. Of course, he grew up as a boy in India, and he knew everything about it. And the character of Kim is so beautiful. But those are all. I'm reading that with Yi Yun Lee, the great writer, Chinese writer, and we have a book club, just 2 members, and we read
Really,
them.
huh?
Yeah,
Love it.
we meet every day and read them.
Every day was fun, unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, oh, yeah.
Each of them read some pages of, or
No, we read it all.
oh, really? Really?
We
I
just
was
read the complete stories of Elizabeth Bowen. So I'm saying that to Laurel just because if you want to read something wonderful, read the stories of Elizabeth Bowen. It's about 700 pages, but it's the complete stories, and they're beautiful. Here's another question. Max asks, how did prison influence Wilde's philosophy of aesthetics? How did it change the way he approached pleasure and art?
okay. At this point, I would like just to read from, I quote Wilde, so I don't want to
Right.
interfere. And this came from a interview with one of a dear friend of her mom, and he says, uh, she asked him, why do you not write now? And he say, because I've written all there was to write. I
Sure,
wrote,
translate into which language? Arabic.
I don't know. I wrote when I did not know life. Now that I know the meaning of life, I have no more to write. I found my soul. I was happy in prison because I found my soul. Anna de Bremont was in tears, and he says, Contessa, don't sorrow for me. I'm happy. And
Wow.
yeah, it was really incredible. And then in another interview, he says the artist must live the complete life, must accept it at its comes, and stands like an angel before him. I've learned the value of each, the great success and the great failure. And I know that the failure means more, always must means more than success.
It's very Christian, isn't it?
It's very Christian. And this is he was baptized one day before he died. He was always struggling between Protestant and Christian.
Catholic.
And he was dealing with the Pope. He went 3 or 4 times in Rome. Nobody knows about this. About to the Pope and say, "Oh, I feel. I want to be Christian. I want to be Christian." Was really struggling a lot, and in a new way.
Yeah.
Christianity was for him, and has for him another meaning, and it was really incredible.
But that idea of being redeemed through suffering is a very Christian idea. You know, I mentioned Ronald Fairbank as a great disciple of Oscar Wilde, and Ronald Fairbank was a friend of both of Wilde's sons at Oxford, but he wanted to be Catholic, and he wanted to be a Swiss guard, and he tried to be that, but he wasn't Swiss, and he wasn't tall enough, and he wasn't young enough, and or good looking enough. So they rejected him, and he liked to make fun of the Catholic Church, and he said, "They rejected me. Now I will reject them."
Yeah.
And all of his writing is very funny. I mean, like there'll be 2 matrons looking at a painting, and they'll say, "The Last Supper at two tables?" I think not.
Yeah. And I was all this struggling in Wilde between Christianity and Protestant about his feelings, about writing in a new way, about and at the end he says, "Who I am."
Yeah,
And he was so humble to say, "Who I am."
yeah,
And it was really beautiful because in Palermo, in a cafe in Palermo, when everybody says, "Who are you? Are you really Oscar Wilde? Are you really the writer? Really?" And he says, "I am. I am." Was the most beautiful novel that he wrote only with two words, "I am."
I am.
Everybody, uh, uh, uh,
That's like the Buddha says, Tathagata, which means I
exactly.
am.
Yes, I am. I am.
Yeah,
And every writer wants to be I am. I don't care about what you think about, what my past, my present, my future. I am.
yeah.
It was this definition about himself. It's really beautiful. It's really amazing.
I think on that note, we should end our program, and I'll hand it back to Evan. Is that all right?
Yeah, if you want to say some final goodbyes or anything.
Well, I think it's a wonderful book, this book by Renato, and it's full of information that you won't find anyplace else. And you get a great feeling of Wilde as a person from this book in a way that I've read all the books about him, but this was very precious to me because it was so rich in unexpected treasures.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate. And I want only to say to all the audience, we are all in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the star. So
Right.
it's Oscar Wilde aphorism. It's not mine. So according to me, uh, I don't want to say my before the election. This is really meaningful now.
Right. Yeah. Oh,
Okay. Thank you.
thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Thank you, Evan. Really.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to both Edmund and Morocco, or Edmund White and Renato Miracco. That was really great. It was nice on a cold night here in New York to spend some time in Italy and among the fashionable, of course. If you want to get Renato's book, we have it here at 192 Books. We're open every day now for browsing, socially distanced, safe and everything, from 11 to 6 on Friday and Saturday, and 11 to 5 every other day. You can also email if you want to reserve a copy, give us a call, anything. We also have Edmund's new book and many of his other books, which we also had an event for with Bill Goldstein about a month ago. And I was talking to a customer and realized that not everyone knows, but all our events that are virtual are online on our website. You can find the links to all of them. So if you want to go back and watch that or watch this one sometime later, yeah, they're available whenever. So yeah, share them with a friend, do anything like that. If you're not from New York or watching from around the world, you can order books through our bookshop page. There are links below on this page. And let me think. The last thing is that next week on Tuesday, we're going to be having an event with Rosanna Warren for her new book on Max Jacob. That's Rosanna Warren and Christopher Benfey. It'll be 6 p.m. on this page, paulcoopergallerystudio.com. And yeah, we'll hope to see you there. Thank you again so much to Renato Miracco and Edmund White. Everyone have a great night, and we'll see you soon.